2. Big John sat before the campfire. The yellow crescent moon hung low over the mountains, just beginning its ascent. The last rays of sunlight had disappeared over an hour ago, and the air had turned cold. Sitting in front of the crackling flames, he felt warm and elated. Stephen Linton had dug the rest of the morning and into the evening. Blanco and Alonzo had joined them with small sweepers, tiny shovels, and cameras. Each layer of sediment they removed from around the cap had been placed in containers for dating. The team didn't have access to radiocarbon dating in the field, so they had to look at the sediment itself. Linton had taken a sediment core when they first began excavation. The man-made cave was at least 4,000 years old. The denizens of Norte Chico had flourished between 3,500 and 1800 BCE, which meant this cave was made somewhere around their demise. The idea the team might have found this civilization's last monument set his stomach aflutter. The rest of the day, he'd written in his dig journal and continued to categorize specimens found during the excavation. Although the suprachiral peoples had been pre-ceramic, they'd found fossilized wooden carvings of Andean birds like the albatross and the condor. All through the Andes, the ancient peoples had worshipped the birds as gods. The symbol of the animals were usually held sacred and appeared on structures rather than wooden casts. Burying them, however, seemed like an act of heresy. John had searched through the reports and journals of all the other digs throughout history and could find no evidence or reports of the symbols being buried. Ever. That meant this cave was truly unique. And it wasn't just one or two of the wooden casts. As they had dug through the base of the hill, they'd found dozens of them. The symbols were nearly identical, as were the shapes. The fact they buried them seemed to indicate their use as a ward of protection or some other holy intent. John wasn't certain what it meant. Once the cataloging was finished, he'd sat in a chair near the fire and continued writing notes. The solar batteries had stored more than enough energy to run all the equipment, including the heaters, but he much preferred a real fire. Enjoying your rest, boss? The birds in the sky blotted out the sun. A flock of thousands swirled and soared through the air. A tornado of feathers and avian screams slowly descended toward the desert floor. In the distance, the temple glowed with yellow and crimson. As the birds moved closer to the ground, the temple's glow increased. The world shook when the flock surrounded the temple, hiding it from view. A bright beam of light flowed upward into the sky. The birds flapped their wings as one, and the air thundered. The ground shook again as the thousands of birds flew off in different directions. Unobscured, the temple was the color of bright sand, etchings and glyphs clearly visible on its walls. In the distance, a group of people wearing loincloths marched toward the temple. As they neared the building, they each became distinct. Heads bowed, 37 men and women walked in single file through the entrance. A lone condor circled them, and then entered behind them. The temple groaned, and the ground quaked. Light began streaming from the outer walls, and then the world became a single flash of white.